Hey guys, what's happening? It's your man J.P. here. I'm doing something a little bit different today. I thought maybe I'd bring you along with my walk. This is something that I've been trying to do. It's just a little bit of exercise, get me a little of activity instead of just kind of sitting at home, lounging around on the couch, eating snacks or whatever. So anyway, I thought I'd do a quick top 5 video. It's been a long time since I've done a top 5 video, so I'm going to give my top 5 wrestling figure toy lines. And so these are, I'm going to try to keep these in order. And these are just the ones that I had fun playing with. And so we'll get started. So number 5, I'm going to go with the J.P.s bone crunching action figures. Not the J.P.s that they came out with after those, with all the articulation and all that. No, the J.P.s bone crunching actions. To me, that's like the just the right amount of articulation. So yeah, I'm having to dodge people on this trail here at this park, but that's okay. So I had a lot of fun with those J.P.s figures. Me and my man Joe, we came out with all kinds of storylines with those. We would spend the entire weekend just playing with those figures, coming up with our own storylines. The only downside to those is sometimes they would get lazy with the design of certain figures, where they would just repaint a figure and call it a brand new one. And I think the reason why you can still get those figures for pretty cheap is because even though they don't make them anymore, they're still not rare. They like way mass produced those to where they were just, and the reason why for that is because those figures were from the Attitude Era, and the Attitude Era was very profitable for the WWF. So so that's number 5, J.P.s bone crunching action. And coming in at number 4, the WCW original San Francisco toy maker figures. That's right, those figures were pretty awesome. I liked them a lot, and the reason why they're all the way down at number 4 is for 2 reasons. Number 1, sometimes the pose wasn't exactly usable, but I mean, that wasn't too often. But the number 1 reason why it's all the way down at number 4 is because the paint that they used for those figures it wasn't very good. It would easily come off and scrape on the other wrestlers, and when you see those wrestlers at a thrift store or on eBay, you can always tell the figures that were heavily used because they've got marks and scuffs all over them of other colored wrestlers. And so, but they were pretty good figure line. They were kind of a cross between the WCW Galoob figures and the WWF LJN figures. And so that's why I really liked them. And so coming at number 3 is the Mattel Retro figures. And that's a current action figure line. And I like them obviously because they are the same size and consistency as the original WWF Hasbros. But they are the reason why they're At number 3 and not number 2 is because, let's face it, sometimes Mattel Retros are not very good at designing their figures, and sometimes the pose is just atrocious. Now, WWF Hasbro, they were guilty of that too, but I think Mattel Retros have kind of taken it to a new level. It's like almost like they're intentionally coming out with unusable figures, just because they're posed in a specific way. Like, they came out with a D-Generation X box set, and the main reason why I didn't get that box set is because the Road Dogg figure was so terrible in its pose. I didn't want to spend the money on that box set because I didn't want that figure. Now, if they would have sold them separately, or if I would have been able to get the 3 without that one, I might have spent a little money to get those, but I didn't like that figure. To me, pose is everything. So, now number 2, it's actually a tie. Number 2 is WWF Hasbro and WCW Galoob figures. Now, I had actually, you would think that would be number 1, just because I had the most fun and most memories playing with those figures. But I will explain why it's not number 1 after I reveal number 1. But WCW Galoob and WWF Hasbro, I think for me those figures were just awesome, just because of the memories that I had with them, but also because they were both the same size, and you could have those dream matches that you wouldn't be able to have otherwise. Because Sting didn't really go to the WWF, so the only way to have WWF wrestlers, for example, versus Sting, was you had to use the Galoob figure. And so, but the WCW Galoob figures were awesome because almost all of them were posed in a way that was absolutely perfect for that particular wrestler and that particular star. And the reason why the Hasbros were so cool is because it was all the wrestling superstars that I grew up watching. Guys like Hulk Hogan and Macho Man Randy Savage and Andre the Giant, Jake the Snake Roberts and Big Boss Man. They had all these big name wrestling superstars, and the ring was the perfect size. Now, I never had the WCW Galoob ring, and I would collect it now, but man, it's expensive. So anyway, but the ring was perfectly sized, it was perfectly designed. The thing I liked about the Galoob figures was that each and every single figure came with a belt, and to me that was just awesome, because what we would do is we would repaint the belts to make them look like different championships. So we just had a plethora of championships, so there was almost always something at stake in every match. But so Galoobs and WCW or WWF Hasbros comes in at number 2. So of course number 1 would be the LJN figures, the WWF LJN figures. Now, I've said on this channel before that I didn't really have WWF LJNs when I was a kid. I just didn't have them. I didn't have them until much later in life. But looking back, I totally see that I totally missed out, because those figures, even to this day, if you can get one that's in pretty good shape and pretty good condition, it's actually a rare find, and it's a treat. And not only were those figures most of the time were they completely usable, because they were in poses that were usually indicative of that particular wrestler's wrestling style. But you could drop them on the floor, you could throw them against the wall, and they would still be intact. Didn't have to worry about them breaking. And the sling and fling 'em ring that you could get with them was sturdy. The design was sturdy, and that, in fact, some people I know still have their WWF Hasbro sling and fling 'em ring, and it's still intact and it's still in good shape. And I know that the WWF Jakks Pacific totally stole that design, that ring design, for their monster ring. And I used to have the monster ring, and looking at it, and if you put it up, compare it to the sling and fling 'em ring, then it's exactly the same design. So, but the monster ring was way too big for the Jakks Pacific figures, especially because the top rope was way over their head. So what we did was we cut notches in the bottom part of the ring post and dropped the bottom rope, and then we dropped the other two ropes to where it was more realistic with the size of figures that you get with the monster ring. So anyway, so yeah, and LJNs to me were really the most epic wrestling figure toy line of all time. And I can just imagine the faces on men my age, boys my age, getting those LJN figures on Christmas Day, opening them up, and just, the magic and all the storylines that you could come up with, and just hours and hours and hours and hours of absolute fun. And I love hearing stories about boys my age. We're all 40-year-old men now, but I'm 40 plus, but I love hearing stories about when people would get these figures for Christmas and their birthdays, and it was like, oh man, now I can bring Jimmy Snuka into my wrestling federation, or now I can bring the Junkyard Dog in, or whatever, whoever it was. Getting a new wrestling figure for Christmas was like, it's getting a new superstar for my wrestling fig federation. So it was always fun, it was always magical, and I'm just happy that I had the childhood that I had. And I wish that I would have had WWF LJNs when I was a kid, because I think I really missed out. But saving grace, though, for myself, then we had the WWF Hasbros, which weren't quite as good because they were hard plastic and they could break, and they have these stupid action power moves that I never cared anything about and that I never used. But nevertheless, I did have a lot of fun with the Hasbros and the Galoobs. And later in life, I had some fun playing with the LJN. So anyway, there you have it. There's my top 5 list for my top 5 wrestling figure lines of all time. Now, I didn't include J.P.s because, quite frankly, their figures sucked. I didn't include the regular Mattels because, although they look awesome and they look cool, I just, they're too expensive for one thing, and there's too many of them. If I were to start collecting them now, I'd never be able to start collecting them now because they're too expensive and there's too many of them. And plus, I don't know, there's too much articulation, and I don't need that. I don't need all that. I was good with just the old figures that I had, and I had a lot of fun with them. So with that, thank you for watching. If you even cared to watch this, there's a local park here in Nixa, Missouri, where I live, and there's a walking trail around it. I just passed a guy several times that was actually on a bike. But anyway, that is going to do it for this video. What are your favorite wrestling figure toy lines? Leave them in the comments below. And if you're new here, please feel free to like and subscribe. And I will see you next time.